Now it's time for Fabulous Film and Friends. This week on Fabulous Film and Friends, the wait is over, and in an exciting change of pace, no negativity. We're going to slaver and spaz all over 2024's Dune Part 2, directed by Denis Villanueve, and starring Timotheé Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, Zendaya, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgaard, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Dave Bautista, Charlotte Rampling, Leah Seydoux, Suhelia Yacoub, Christopher Walken, and, spoiler alert, Anya Taylor-Joy. My guests today are David Johnson, DMD, and Roseanne Caputi. Series regular and good friend Alex Robertson is sitting this one out because he said, and I quote, "I have to polish my silver and scrub the cabinets tonight." But the truth is, Dune is science fiction and is packed wall-to-wall with current superstars and nary an obscure 70s grindhouse actor to be found in its nearly 3-hour running time, and Alex can't handle either. So Dave, that means it falls upon you. Warm us up with the answer to a paradox I'm sure Alex is puzzling as we speak. If the centuries-old breeding program and prophecy about the Kwisatz Haderach was promoted and promulgated by the Bene Gesserit, why would the Reverend Mother spare the lives of Paul Atreides and Lady Jessica, especially when they were angry at Lady Jessica for disobeying her order and having a son? Speechless, Dave? You're not going to answer that?
I'm speechless.
You read the book?
It's been so long. I read it. I can't even remember what year I read it. But
you read it in 1984.
First of all, I couldn't understand some of the words that you said. So, but anyway, it was very. I was impressed with the nerdiness and the science fiction spazziness in what you just said.
Before we contemplate these riddles and so many more, the synopsis. Dune Part 2 picks up exactly where Part 1 left off. After narrowly escaping multiple assassination attempts and exiled into the harsh desert of the savagely hot and dry spice-producing planet Arrakis, after Paul Atreides' father Duke Leto was murdered by Baron Vladimir Harkonnen in a brutal attack against House Atreides conceived and orchestrated by the Emperor Shaddam IV, Paul and his mother, Lady Jessica, have joined with the Desert Warrior Freeman people. Paul wrestles with the notion, or is it a plot, that he is Kwisatz Haderach, the chosen and one prophesied to lead the Freeman warriors in a holy war against all the houses of the Galactic Empire. Fearing that their plot has backfired, the Bene Gesserit, Order of Witches, led by Gaius Helen Mohiam, devise a plan to install the sadistic Fade Rotha Harkonnen as governor of Arrakis in order to quell the Freeman rebellion brewing which Paul leads and Lady Jessica, now a full-fledged Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother, promotes to the more religiously extreme southern Freeman tribes. All right, not much different than what my nerdy... There's not a whole lot of difference, is there? So Dune, let's get into it. How did everybody like the movie? Roseanne Caputi.
Oh, I loved the movie. Again,
Dave Johnson.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I love this movie, and I didn't really want it to end.
Same.
Three hours. And to me, okay, I think Blade Runner is the best science fiction movie of all time.
Sure.
That's my opinion. This is getting pretty close. This Dune 2 for me. I love the first one. I think this one's even better than the first.
Whoa. I don't agree with that. I think basically these two movies have been split in half, like the second part to a TV show or something. Like, I don't think they should be seen as the first one and a sequel. They're just it's the same story cut in half. I just think if you edit both movies together, it's not like he just fell apart in the second one. It's the same. It feels like the same movie. Like I just tuned in 2 years later. You know, like it's the same. It feels exactly the same, and it's not like a sequel where they're making things up just to sort of justify their existence, like your Beverly Hills Cop 2 or whatever, terrible rehash sequels. This is based, but even like if a similar comparison is Lord of the Rings, where Lord of the Rings movies do just get progressively worse. This, I'd say, maintains the same equilibrium, the same pace.
Well, and it's not supposed to feel like a sequel,
right?
I just think the unfortunate part, again, and I know I'm like thinking about this a lot. I really do wish they were together, is because I do feel like I felt with the book that the end gains such an amazing intensity based on the fact that it does stay so focused, and the promise of all its characters come to the fore in an amazing way. So I do feel, at least, especially having just seen it today, and I'm in like hardcore spaz mode about it, like I almost feel like I like it better just because it felt like such an amazing, not even conclusion, but just continuation.
Yeah, but I didn't want to watch. I don't know why I didn't feel like watching I've seen the first one. I bought it when it came out. I mean, we all talked about it on this podcast. I liked it a lot, but I didn't love it. It's not a movie that I ran out of the theater skipping and jumping down for. Like, it's not like Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, where
jumping down for joy,
jumping up and down for joy. Where I left. Dave, you don't know this. The first time I saw Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom by myself at the Rex Theater, I saw it by myself and then went and saw it again the next day and saw it with you. First time I saw it by myself, I'm just running home, whistling, spazzing, singing the Raiders of the Lost Ark March. This is a 14-year-old kid, mind you, not a 3-year-old or not a 5-year-old. This 14-year-old teenager singing da 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 da. I'm leaving. I'm on a high. These movies don't leave you on a high, but they're just, except, I guess, an intellectual, professional high where you just look at it and go, this is astounding filmmaking. It's just amazing. They just, through and through, there is not a dud shot in the entire, and I just watched the first one today, or the first part today, and it's just as good. There's no difference in quality. It just, the second one, it has a resolution where the first one just sort of ends, and that's a kind of a problem, but not anymore. Not where we know where the film's going and where it's gonna end up. So I just think they're both equally great. There's no one's better than the other.
And maybe it is because I didn't get to see the first one in the theater, and it was in the height of COVID and things, make something like that. But I did, I was kind of laughing and hugging myself that things were so awesome in this one. I mean,
but they're just as awesome in the first one.
I agree, but I feel like for some reason it really just resonated, and I don't know whether it was because I finally got to see it in the theater and I hadn't seen it before. Because when I started rewatching it now, I was just like, this does feel like the same tone. This still feels awesome and smart and focused and stuff like that. But I just feel like, I don't know, there is a joy in how good this movie is. I'm just arguing the fact that I felt a kind of elation because, again, I rarely see movies in movie theaters anymore where I feel like someone did an absolutely amazing job.
Yeah.
From start to finish. And there is a joy in that. And it's not just intellectual, like it was a visceral kind of joy.
I didn't. I'll have to see. I want to see it again, especially after watching the first one again. And I was like, can't wait to get by that second one and just watch them back to back to back to back to back to back all the time. But I don't leave the theater whistling Hans Zimmer's music. That's for sure. So there isn't that just elation. It doesn't have that. What's the word? Catharsis. That's the word. There's no catharsis.
Which is so funny you say that because I was saying, it had such an amazing catharsis for me. I thought it was truly.
What's the catharsis? Him stabbing Fade?
I genuinely feel like Paul's rise is cathartic. I feel like that scene when he says Dune. I mean, I think he really pulls that off, and it really happens. I feel like
the speech to the Freeman?
The big speech to the Freeman.
That was impressive, especially since he swung and missed in Henry V. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I looked at Raphael and I was like, okay, now he can play a king.
Yeah.
He pulled
that
a few
off,
years,
sure.
but now he more than pulled it off. I felt catharsis there, and I'm like, that's what that is. And so that's why it was ultimately satisfying. You have all this training. He surpasses what his mom wants him to do. Like he's Neo, baby. He's dodging bullets now.
Well,
it's his own thing.
Dave, I'm going to let you talk for a second, but there is the one thing that kept creeping on the little devil on my shoulder kept saying, it's too bad this wasn't made years and years and years ago. Because we've seen Star Wars, we've seen The Matrix, we've seen Avatar, we've seen John Carter of Mars, we've seen all these movies. Like John Carter got shellacked mainly because everybody made movies that ripped it off. Obviously, I'm going, boy, that George Lucas, he really ripped off Dune, didn't he? boy, that James Cameron, he really ripped off Dune, didn't he? So it's a little bit of French connection there. Like, I've just seen all these other movies that have done all this, and
I think it doesn't matter though,
doesn't
because
detract,
it's expertly done.
but it put a sort of disappointment. Like, too bad I couldn't feel the elation of him riding the sandworm, because they've done this to death.
Okay, really fast, and then Dave, go ahead. I'm like, fine, the sandworm, but I think about that versus the Mandalorian. And I'm just like, the sandworm in this was so visceral and so cool, and it was so just about sound and sand and not the worm, not the focus on some gloppy, special effect. I feel like you're really undervaluing it.
Probably,
and
but
how
imaginative. I can only tell you how I feel, and those are the little things nagging at me. Like, yeah, it's a shame that this isn't a surprise to me. That's it. I wasn't saying it was bad or dumb or anything. It was all good. It's just that this sort of overcoming your fear against this horrific creature has been done to death now.
Of course, but again, regardless, I'm just like, so has every dumbass thing ever. I just kept thanking God it wasn't a Marvel movie, and that I wasn't stuck watching 45 hours of hand-to-hand combat. Instead, it's just sort of seamlessly, they come out of the dirt, little bit of fighting, they take over the Emperor's place. Great.
That was
Perfect.
cool too. Yeah. The fight wasn't
so cool.
That's what I do like about Denis Villanueve. He didn't belabor the fight for sure.
No,
and that's
like,
so
okay,
boring.
the fight happens, they beat ass, and they go take over.
Yeah, right. Right.
Anyway, sorry, Dave.
Yeah.
Over
Dave,
to you.
what do you got to say? Any thoughts on this?
I just think for me, I think you brought up a good point. It's resolution, and that's probably why I liked it. I love the first one. I love Dune, the first part. I just like this one better because there's resolution. And and you brought up the whole worm. The worm scene to me was cool because it was just sand, wind, and and for the Freeman, that's basically who they worship, right? Is the sandworm.
Yeah.
And so he is connecting to God for the Freeman, which is more than just conquering his fear. He is making that spiritual jump too, and has to go through hell to ride that worm.
Right.
And so I don't know. I just love this movie. I got really invested. I'm like, man, I wish I could A, see it again, and B, keep going. I want to,
Yeah.
So,
well, I definitely felt in the mood. Well, with the sort of cliffhanger ending, I was definitely in the mood for more, for sure. I mean, I just thought, so Chani's just gonna that felt like an embellishment. I can't imagine the book ending like that. Like, she just wanders the desert in lovelorn pain. Really?
Again, remember, in the book, she's in a tent raising their kids. So that's a little, that's different. She does feel the pain of him going with, the Emperor's daughter. Is she an empress? I guess not.
Yeah,
I don't know. Anyway,
the Emperor's daughter.
The Emperor's daughter, because he makes that alliance. But regardless, I just think the whole thing is, it's not a cliffhanger, but it's not as a super satisfying end, because then you have 900 other Frank Herbert books or whatever, which I haven't read.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it ends slightly melancholy, or bittersweet. It doesn't have the best. I'm not going to say it has a bad ending. It has a fine ending, but it doesn't end on that sort of kick-ass. Yeah. It ends with, hey, wait a minute. The mother is exploiting the religiosity of the Freeman so she can go to war against all the houses. So she's totally manipulative. So again, I don't know the book. I don't know. Obviously, the story is grappling with the idea of religion used as a tool for holy wars. Well,
and the fact that Paul knows the entire time and yet still feels this calling. And again, just watching the Duke saying, well, maybe you'll find your own way to leadership.
Yeah.
And the fact that I like the fact that, and I think there's more of it, that Chani brings this sort of ambiguity of just like, for what reasons is he doing this? He is called to it. and he does say, you know, I'll do what has to be done. And then you think, okay, now he is political. And so this idea of what a Messiah actually needs to be and what destiny really is, and the fact that he really is this thing, and yet it was also all manipulation.
But it
These are
was,
valuable.
you know, and then
The Bene
I'm thinking of the Matrix, and again, I'm like, wow, the
Sure.
Matrix wasn't original at all either,
At all.
because
Yeah.
the Bene
Yeah, yeah,
Gesserit they concocted this whole notion.
Sure.
But this is what I don't understand, and I was kind of serious when I asked you that question in the nerd voice. But if that's what they knew it was going to happen, and they want this message to promulgate across the galaxy, why didn't they let him die? Why didn't they let him die if they wanted a girl?
Charlotte Rampling says that there are all kinds of different things. That's why they even have fate in the first place. But that there are many, which I think is definitely like interesting in terms of religion, many different possibilities could shake out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And she leaves it open for that. And she leaves it open for Paul Atreides to possibly do that.
Why did she say, what did she say, apostasy, when he tells her, quiet! And she just backs off, and she goes, apostasy. Or something. She mutters something, or like that this is wrong, or something. I mean, when he shuts her up.
He still has the gift.
No, I know he has the gift, but we knew he had the gift from the beginning.
I know, but so she respects that. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I mean, and not to belabor a point, but you know, the Bene Gesserit have been, you know, breeding. I'm using the term breeding for, I don't know how
centuries.
To get to this point. And I think, you know, there was internal fighting with the Reverend Mother, and I don't remember her name, and Jessica, who has her own agendas, and so they're like infighting factions of who is.
I think that's true.
Yeah. And so, anyway, because Jessica said to the Reverend Mother, "You chose the wrong side," or something like that.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah. So
she's like, there are no sides. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Says, you should know there are no sides. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Charlotte Rampling says that even in the first meeting anyway. So again, it was all, I think, still themes of fate and destiny.
Yeah, for sure.
And that leaves it open.
And free will, though. So it definitely has that feel that we've run up against in all these movies. So I'm just, again, it doesn't take away from the movie. It doesn't. I just felt like it almost makes me disappointed in Star Wars and everything else. Like, oh, you've all been ripping off Dune all this time. Huh. What a bunch of jerks.
In a way, though, I just feel like Denis could have definitely messed it up and not breathed new life into it, and I think he did.
He's awesome. Like when I compare this to Blade Runner 2049, Blade Runner 2049 is a failure. And I was just reading an article with him where it says he still wakes up at night going, "Why did I do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why did you do that? You didn't make it. You didn't, you know, it's like, yeah, but this is incredible." I don't know where it ranks. Let's say Star Wars trilogy, the original Star Wars trilogy, or Dune 1 and 2. Roseanne Caputi.
Well, that's incredibly difficult because obviously I have, you know, entire epochs of my childhood tied into.
I'm talking about skill in filmmaking and storytelling.
Then it's Dune 1 and 2.
Dave Johnson, Star Wars or Dune 1 and 2?
Now, to be fair to Star Wars, they were done 70s and 80s.
Doesn't matter. We know we know for the 70s it was the best of the best. In the 80s, there was nothing better than Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I'm going to say Dune 1 and 2. Oh, I mean, I can't think of one scene I didn't like.
Agree.
Well, I can't. Yeah. When I was a kid, I couldn't think of one scene in Empire Strikes Back I didn't like.
Yeah.
Okay, but you think about the pacing issues.
All right, Dave.
No hope.
Hold on, Dave. Indiana Jones 1 through 3 or Dune 1 and 2? Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Why you got to do that?
Okay, I love Indiana Jones 1, 2, and 1 and 2, 3. But Dune 1 and 2, these are better. Hands down.
Back to the Future. 1, 2, and 3 versus Dune 1 and 2.
Dune 1 and 2.
Roseanne?
But
beloved franchises.
Okay, but the thing, okay, so you can't say that. You can't go back and say, we're talking about beloved franchises when I said, yeah, but they're connected to my childhood and who I am as a person and, my taste. If we're just talking in terms of filmmaking, it's Dune 1 and 2.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say better than Star Wars. Because
Better
Star
than
Wars,
Star-
even as a kid, I said, "Oh, that's superimposed." I used to say superimposed. It's a composite. But even the shots of the Tauntaun looked fake. Nothing about these movies looks fake. Like
No.
the sandstorm. Okay, I know they're models, but as all those shots of the whatever you call her, chomptercopters, whatever. I forget they have a different name than helicopters. All those
Ornithopters or
yeah,
whatever.
all those
The
shots of
birds.
them, they look as good as possible. They look like they could be Air Force footage.
Well,
The
and
effects are just so seamless. It's just
the
it's all
other thing
so
too,
well done.
and because of that, I'm like, it succeeds more, I guess, or it's more successful at building worlds. It
Yeah,
just is. I mean,
yeah,
hands
and part two for sure. Dave, I'm sure you like part two. They were world building and cultural building in the first one. This movie felt like, wow, I really am watching this alien sort of Middle Eastern culture, and it all just seems logical. And that's the details that he takes the time to establish and then reach, especially in the first movie when all these nice scenes that feel like they're straight out of a novel. I'm sure that scene where the guy's watering the palm trees is in the novel, right? That has to be, because it
Yes,
feels like a
it
nice little
is.
detail that sort of bears fruit in the sequel when you realize how sacred they have the water and how the people die and they have all these water stores, of
That
dead
was
people.
amazing.
Yeah,
The dead people in the water and using it just like it's filled with chemicals, but it's fine for a cooling suit. But
right.
then taking it to that next level of having this sacred stream of everybody's like
Yeah.
what
No, there
humans were.
and I'd say,
Amazing.
oh, and you do feel like you're learning about a culture
Yeah.
gradually without any stupid exposition. It's the screenplays are really really good. And again, that's
Okay,
why I feel like I should read the novel, just because it is a master class in screenwriting. Like this is all pretty complicated, and they made it very seamless.
yeah.
Mhm.
And
Gene,
again,
so
I've
here's
been down on Denis Villeneuve for a long time. Roseanne can tell you, I've been down on most of his movies. I always thought he was a guy who couldn't close the sale. I no longer say that. He's they keep comparing him to Christopher Nolan. With this, he's way
Way
better than
better.
way
Way
better than
better.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah,
You,
I
you know.
agree. Okay, Gene, here's the question for you.
Uh-oh.
Aliens or Dune 2?
Well,
Good one.
Alien stops at 1 and 2, so Aliens is pretty weak series, really.
Well,
Um,
no, because I mean, as a movie,
oh.
face to face.
Ooh. Boy,
Come
that's
on,
tough.
James Cameron's boyfriend.
I'm gonna say Aliens. I just think Aliens.
What?
Oh, what? No way.
Aliens, come
Come
on.
on.
Aliens was a
No,
rush.
that's a sentimental
Aliens is a
vote.
rush.
That's not for real.
Dune. I'm sorry. Dune is awesome, but Dune does not have that sense of catharsis the way Aliens does. It just
You are
doesn't.
Sigourney
That is
Weaver.
baffling. That is
It's not baffling.
baffling.
It's better filmmaking for sure, but Aliens has a tremendous sense of relief at the end. You don't have that sense in Dune 2. You
Well,
just don't.
that's because they want to do part 3 from Dune Messiah. See, so they have to keep
Maybe, but the movie is more of a spiritual, intellectual exercise. In terms of visceral action, I got to give it to Aliens. I'm sorry, I can't lie.
Yeah, that's all right.
Back to the Future is one of Back to the Future 2 is one of the greatest skipping and jumping, leaving the theaters movie experiences of my life. But when I look at it in retrospect, it's all very stupid. Yeah, that's
Okay, Dune is asking the important questions. I mean, way before
yes.
Matrix is asking the important
Yes.
questions.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And
And
that
Okay,
chosen
again,
one idea is more complex in Dune. Whereas,
certainly. But the
yeah.
idea of, okay, and I love Aliens, but I just think Aliens is not asking important questions.
But I'm talking about just in terms of leaving the theater on a high. It's Aliens.
That's not the same.
Well,
Wait,
you have
that's
that
not. You
Dune.
keep changing your original question.
Well,
We're not talking about leaving the
filmmaking.
theater on
Okay,
a
but
high.
all right,
Well, then
fine.
Teenage
But in
Mutant
terms of
Ninja
a movie I
Turtles.
love, it's Aliens. I can't.
and that's fair. Yeah, that's
I
fair.
can't kick Dune. I
No,
can't
Dave,
kick
it's
Aliens
not
off.
fair.
I can't
No.
kick Aliens or Road Warrior off the list. I'd still say Road Warrior is better than Dune. In terms of just movies that I just love. I like Dune a lot. It's solid, but I don't have a love for it, except I don't
I
know.
think
I'm full of
I
crap.
think I think Dune Part 2 made it so I love it.
Well,
Yeah, see,
I think
and for
it
me,
closed. I think it did everything it needed to do.
it
I
did.
mean,
Well,
it's
let
not
me
where.
let it broil over time. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I said it's not where original Blade Runner is,
No.
but it's getting up there. Like for me, top five sci-fi
Hmm.
movie.
So if I got Blade Runner, Aliens, The Empire Strikes Back, The Road Warrior, The Matrix, Dune. Is Dune better than The Matrix?
It is.
I love The Matrix, but I think Dune is better.
Boy, this is.
Again,
I'm gonna.
Matrix is
I'm gonna say time will
Matrix is
tell.
the ultimate.
Time will tell. I think Dune's up there. I need to sit on Dune and watch it a few more times because I've watched The Matrix a ton. I've watched all these
Okay.
movies a ton. You know.
And I've watched The Matrix a million times. I've given assignments on it, all kinds of things. But let's face it, when it comes to it, it can't close the sale on the second and third. And again, anything that has a stronger second half is a superior product because so many people cannot write endings or fulfill what the first half usually sets in motion. And this does it flawlessly.
Here's an easy one, and I'm amazed at other people saying this. Is it better than Lord of the Rings?
Okay, can I just say when he is running on that ridge line, that sand ridge line, and it's going down and he's getting it, I just thought this is what Lord of the Rings should have been.
Yeah,
I kept
for
thinking
sure.
that
Yeah.
this like first person sense of like fear and adrenaline and adventure and all these things in one.
Absolutely.
And
There's
with,
not a fraudulent scene in the whole thing.
No.
and when they call the worm and Stilgar says, "Not that big,"
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it was like it just added to that because, he's, yeah. Anyway, but yeah.
Well, let's get into this whole idea of. I guess we touched on it, but do you think that it is? I mean, whose side do you take? Do you take Paul Atreides or take Chani's side, Dave?
I kind of take. You mean as far as
As
like,
far as she still, even though her name is a prophecy and everything she does is a prophecy, she still doesn't believe.
Yeah.
She still thinks it's a bunch of crap and he's being manipulated.
well, I agree with Chani's side. I mean, I think he has been manipulated. I mean, from his mom, the Bene Gesserit, and and if you go back to the part one, Duke Atreides says, "If anything happens, will you protect my
protect him?"
son?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "With all my life." And he goes,
Yeah.
"I'm not asking
Right.
his mother. I'm asking the Bene Gesserit." So,
Right.
like,
And
he's
she
being
does betray it. She does betray that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she does. Yeah.
I only
And
noticed that today. I only picked up because I watched the first one today and I was like, she betrayed that idea. I forgot about
Yeah.
that scene.
yeah. So in the
Okay.
end, she's being the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother, and doing her working in the shadows, whatever you want to say, and not protecting her son, and manipulating for their agenda.
But I do think that Paul has transcended both Chani and his mother in this way. So I think as much as I do identify with Chani's perspective more, because obviously everything that's happening, and also she's boots to the ground, she lives it. So, I respect her perspective. But on the other hand, I love when Paul like what does he do? Like stomps his foot so that the emperor kisses his ring. I just feel like his sort of impatience that he doesn't do that yet. I'm like, he has become his own thing. He has his own plan. He has transcended what his mother wants. And so when he says, I will do what needs to be done, I feel like we don't yet know. He's not a pawn in this anymore. So I do in that way too. I think, well, maybe Paul Atreides, because he's not just fulfilling her prophecy anymore. And so we can't, I like that. Do we trust Paul Atreides at the end of this movie?
No.
No, we don't. But we do
No.
trust that Paul Atreides can do whatever the hell it is that he's going to do.
Do you think, now, breaking in about box office, do you think the reason why there's an $80 million smash is because we're so jaded about politicians and strategists now? Like,
No.
maybe we weren't ready before. And now it's like, yeah, a movie about a guy who turns into a slime-sucking pig. Yeah. It's kind of
Well, first of all, he
interesting.
doesn't become that. And second of all, I just think, no, I think
Well, he
people,
ditches his true love.
I just feel like a prophet would have to do that. I just feel like that makes a lot of sense. If he
Whatever,
had stayed
Yoko
with
Ono.
her. No, I just, it makes sense to me that he would have to do that.
Yeah, in a cutthroat, jerky way. I mean, that's not what America wants, is it? They want the hero to ditch his true love just for political aspirations and convenience.
It's not convenience.
It is convenience. It's how he was. It was the original plan to marry the daughter. Remember, he says that early on.
I know. It's not convenient to him though. I think, and that's the thing. I'm like, is he doing this for power or is he trying to actually save people? And that's the question about politics and leadership in general. I think these, again, valuable questions. And
What
I just
other
think,
questions
okay,
are
if
there?
he was, what other questions are there? But again, if he stayed with Zendaya and he just was, this low level Messiah instead of a galactic Messiah, would it have been worth it what he had been through? He saw death, he conquered death. I don't know. Dave, what do you think? Lay it on me.
With what Paul, like, is he?
Is he a scum sucking bastard? Because I think
No,
it's
I think he's still torn. To me, he's still torn. I think he's torn between, and again, this goes back to free will versus, the prophecies. I think he loves Johnny, right? I mean, and I think he's doing this. My impression, my feeling, he's doing it to save the the Fremen people.
so I
But
think that, go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
no, but I don't think that. Um, I don't think it's my impression. It's not an easy decision for him because he knows the fallout, right? When he says, "Well, I will take your daughter as my wife to make an alliance," and that's I just think it's human nature. I think he's torn between what he has to do and what he really wants to do.
Yeah, but that was his plan.
Well, I
His
think
plan was from the beginning was to do that. He tells Rebecca or he tells Lady Jessica that that's what's going to happen. It's when they first find the underground hideaway in the Freeman land in part 1.
Oh yeah,
He
I
lays out
remember that.
he lays out his plan to win back the empire and win back the house.
Yeah,
right,
but
but
it wasn't.
also there's something more at stake. Remember, he doesn't want to go to the south, and I keep thinking about it like Jesus not wanting to, go further because he knows what's going to happen in the end. He doesn't want to be this person.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it does seem like more and more, like before it was just like, hey, this is my plan. But now more and more it's like this potentially is the leader people need. And again, I know Gurney's talking about just like, well, your father, didn't believe in revenge. and
Right.
and Paul Atreides is like, yeah, well, I do. I still don't.
Is
I
that from
feel
the
like
book? Can we verify that? Is that from the book?
I can't verify that for shit. I don't remember it all. But I do just think, it is more complex. He isn't just, it's not just jaded. I think he genuinely does grow into this role of like, well, leadership does require sacrifice.
Evil sacrifice, though?
Is it an evil sacrifice to not be with Chani anymore?
Yeah.
How's that evil?
He said he'd love her till his last breath.
I believe that he will.
Well, I don't know the rules of bigamy in the Dukes and Emperor. What the hell's his name? The Fourth. I don't know what the rules are on bigamy, but it seems like he's breaking some sort of vow.
But I'm going back to part 1 when they're in the tent and he starts seeing in part 1, he and Jessica, he has a vision in the tent from the spice and he sees a holy war in his father's name. And, so he sees it, kind of what can happen and what he can become. It reminds me of the end of the movie of the Green Knight when he
Right.
Gawain
Yeah.
sees what he will become if if he doesn't go through with it. And anyway, when he doesn't finish the game anyway with the Green Knight. But I still think he's torn. I mean, I think he's torn between duty and but he
Love.
still loves
Duty
Chani.
and love, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and again, he can't just exist with the Fremen if he's going to prevent the Holy War.
But he's not preventing the Holy War.
He's
They're
not
starting the
gonna
Holy War.
prevent it, but I mean, he
They're
is
going to have
starting
a
the
Holy War.
What I mean is win it, not prevent it, win it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess obviously he wins it, doesn't he?
I
But
don't know.
nobody's read Dune Messiah.
No.
So, okay. Well,
I think Roseanne now has some assignments for students rather than the Matrix. So this is like, dissertation level writing here, trying to, yeah.
The fact that it's a blockbuster is astounding. So maybe even with Oppenheimer, it's kind of heartening to see that people's attention spans are getting longer. Is it all the streaming and all the binge watching, you think?
I don't think so. I think people really do want to see movies that are well done.
Yeah,
I saw in Alameda with sort of a bespectacled nerd crowd.
Well,
and the one funny thing was they were snickering and groaning at the Godzilla vs. King Kong trailer, but they did not hoot. So I could use a few more rubes in the crowd because nobody was cheering and hooting and hollering at Dune 2. They just left. They left quietly. They didn't seem very emotionally invested.
Well, I just wonder if there's so much to process in that movie. When I came out, I'm just like, I wanted it to go on. I loved every minute of it, and I just wanted to sit with it. Like, and it's not like Maverick, Top Gun, right? Top Gun Maverick, everyone's cheering after. I mean, this movie is a deep movie. I mean, based on the, obviously the book, but it's so well done that even those people that aren't into metaphysical stuff or the deep layers, it's still an astounding movie.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get into it. Let's get into performances. All right. So first of all, let's just clear the air. There are some weaknesses, namely starting with one, Christopher Walken. So he was like, again, I don't do Christopher Walken, thank God, but it's just, this is my shitty Christopher Walken. I'm Christopher Walken. What do I do in this movie? Like, he just seemed like he might as well have been Danny DeVito. It just seemed like, what the hell? What's he doing? And why'd you do that, Denis? That was a bad choice. So that was a weakness. It's like completely distracting. That for me it was. I kept thinking he seems like he's Christopher Walken.
He had a small part though.
Sure.
Yeah.
Minor weakness. But of all the old distinguished British actors you could have hired, why hire him? Hell, Dave, you with that beard, I'd have said, "Yep, there's the Emperor."
But
you look like you could beat some ass. Unlike Christopher Walken, I kept looking at, being like, "Man, it's like frail. They got my dad. He looks too frail.
Too frail. Yeah, too old. Too venerated."
But you can't throw out Christopher Walken.
So is that how you do Christopher Walken? I just thought,
something like that.
Yeah. I thought I just thought that was a weakness. And then I'm gonna just say it, and then you can discuss while I chew on my asparagus. Zendaya was not up to snuff. She's a good actress. She did nothing wrong. Physically, I didn't care that she got jilted in the end. I didn't care. I think Florence Pugh with that steamy heat left over from Little Women, they still seem like a good couple. Like Florence Pugh and Timotheé Chalamet, I thought, oh, cool, he's going to marry her. I thought Zendaya did not quite, I don't know. Am I wrong? I just didn't think now, some actors can make you feel what they're going through. I didn't feel it. I didn't care. Thoughts, Roseanne?
Again, I couldn't tell whether it was just because at this point I was really feeling Paul Atreides' momentum in terms of choices. I would say, even though intellectually her plight, I was with her, I would say I did not feel the heartbreak that I thought based on the intimacy of their connection. And I don't mean, just not just sexually, just the fact that they fight side by side together. And I did not feel her betrayal. Whereas Florence Pugh, let's face it, she's just a formidable actress.
But
And
she didn't do a
so
whole lot in this movie. She just
she
her
did
presence.
not. I'm just saying, even
Her
standing
headdresses.
there,
Her
yes,
headdresses were gorgeous. Like I
even
just wanted her to
standing
be like,
there,
oh, I want her to be his wife. You
right.
know? And
But again, she gives such a, I mean, you said it before, but a physical performance, looking regal, looking like she belongs in the room. And
yeah.
I didn't believe that from Zendaya. Again, and I like her. I think she's a perfectly likable actress. In no way was she embarrassing. I liked them together.
No, she's good.
I did not feel like she was ferocious. They gave her sort of these ferocious things to do, and I didn't
and
feel
this has
her.
to. So if you guys are listening, Denis, I know you're listening, Denis. Would you stop with the little 5-pound, 50-pound girls slicing and dicing? No. Now the one girl, what's her name? Let me call up her name again.
Yeah, she deserves to have her name known. She's good.
Suheila Yacoub, I would have believed 100% that she was a warrior woman and could kick ass. Now Timothée Chalamet, he's a little bit of a stretch too. He does weigh $105, and it's like Fade like Austin Butler looked like he could wipe the floor with Timothée Chalamet, and that's a problem with Timothée Chalamet. He just
okay.
And
Except
again, if I do
Chalamet,
cast Timothée Chalamet, I'm gonna make sure he takes kung fu and just moves so fast that he looks like he's just faster than everybody. Because he just looks too skinny. He's too much. I mean, it's not a problem with the movie, but I am kind of sick of this trope of like he would just get his ass kicked by Austin Butler.
Would not, because he's mentally stronger, and he's doing flips. He's really strong.
Okay, so here's my deal. If you're going to make a guy who looks like he's underestimated, then make that stick. I'm sick of movies where the good, if it's strength against strength, he's gonna get his ass kicked. So you have to have a scene where Javier Bardem goes, "You can't win against his strength. You've got to fight him with your speed." Whatever.
What is this, Rocky? No, first of all, it just
didn't look. They did not look like a match. They did not look like a match.
Because the thing is, and this is another one of the strengths of the film, which is you see him being taught and trained every second of his life for every moment subsequently. So you see Duncan Idaho, and you see Josh Brolin at Gurney absolutely training him every second. I just rewatched that first fight when he's like, "You're not in the mood," when he's acting like a pouty little girl about it. And I just think, no, what he has, and this is, again, his strength as a leader, is the most formidable group of men and women who constantly train him and basically form him into this like very fine, sharp.
I'm sorry. This is the Rocky Balboa training in me. You have to show that he's super fast with a knife. You got to show it.
They do.
No, they don't. They don't make him any. There should be a scene where he slices Fade in the face, and Fade's like, "Oh shit, this guy's fast." They don't have that scene. They look like they're going toe to toe, and they got to make it where the guy's. There has to be a reason why he's faster.
Go ahead and tell me about your extensive experience fighting. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the mood. If it had turned into some stupid ass like extended masculine, like don't do this, don't do this, the logistics of fighting, it would have not been what it was.
It's not a very interesting fight. I'd say David Lynch's was better.
Dave, you actually do fight. What do you weigh in here?
I mean, I don't fight anymore, but I did
Dave,
12 years.
You got to know, you can't go toe-to-toe with strength against strength.
Let the man talk.
Okay, let me. Okay, as one who did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 12 years and Judo, it doesn't matter about strength. This is not Arnold Schwarzenegger, Predator muscles. It's all about, it's a chess match. And in the end, I like that fight scene because it shows that, Paul was vulnerable. He got stuck with a knife, right?
Yeah.
And he was about to die. And then, but
his move, they didn't show the move, which always pisses me off.
He took the knife out. His training and his brains, he beat him. But
Yeah,
no, I mean, I've been thrown by people that weigh a buck 40, and I'm
right. But it's a move you didn't know, right?
I know the moves, but if they're quicker, it doesn't matter.
There
I
it
mean,
is. Just all I'm asking. Establish that he's faster. Just establish
He's
that.
faster because he's
They
smart. He
didn't
gets to the
establish it.
move before. First
They
of all,
don't establish it. I'm sorry. They didn't establish it in my mind. Where what's his edge?
here's what I'm establishing. The edge is, and let's get back to performance. Timothée Chalamet is great, and he's going to go unnoticed because Austin Butler is great, and there are all these other great performances. But Timothée Chalamet, let's face it, it rides on him, and he absolutely 100% delivers.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I just want to say that I want him to be nominated for an Academy Award. I think it's an amazing performance.
I agree. Overall, the only problem with him is he is tiny. And Dave,
Okay.
Dave's right. But you have to establish why he's good, and they don't quite do that.
That's fine, but let's get past that to establishing why he's good as a performer in this film.
No, okay,
Which
fine.
is-
But
okay.
that's my only beef is Zendaya just doesn't seem ferocious enough. And if again, it's in the back of my mind that this is Hollywood. In real life, Austin Butler would have killed him.
Okay, but the thing is, when it comes to, and I don't feel like Zendaya has this same level in her performance, is if we're talking about back to eye acting, I see Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides taking everything in at every second.
Okay, fair enough.
And I do think that is such a strength for his performance, and that again, him being this sort of vulnerable person when he's saying, I would strive to be equal to you, does not come off as a line. It comes off as like a strategy, and I'm like, that's a well played line because of that, because of it's an intelligent performance.
I agree. Who, Dave? Do you think Timothée Chalamet gives the best performance in the movie?
are we just talking males?
We're talking
Or-
just the.
That's
Let's
a
go.
good question.
What was your?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
forget me, male, female, because in this movie they really are blending together. There's no like.
They are.
It's not
Yeah.
like the
Well,
guy
this
and the
is-
girl. This is like okay, they're all one big troop, and they
Okay,
really
yeah.
do feel like one big troop.
So Timothée Chalamet was the best in the movie. He did an amazing job. I also loved Rebecca Ferguson. I
Yeah.
thought she
Amazing.
played
Yeah,
those two
I'm gonna
those
give
two.
Rebecca Ferguson the edge actually,
out of those two.
out of everybody.
Oh,
And
yeah,
Javier
she-
Bardem was no slouch either, and neither was
He was
Austin
amazing.
Butler.
Yeah.
Austin
Right.
Butler made an amazing choice in sounding
Yeah.
like Stellan Skarsgård.
Stellan's-
Like that was like cool. Like I thought it was Stellan Skarsgård at first. I'm like he has the same voice. That's great. That's a great choice. And usually actors are too arrogant and stupid to come up with choices like that. I don't want to sound like him. I want to be my own voice. He didn't make that stupid. He sounds like his uncle. That's fantastic.
And in that, he gave one of the most distinctive performances as a villain I think I've seen in a really long time.
Oh yeah.
To be like that.
But
And
then,
again,
but then you have to. Is Rebecca Ferguson a villain in this?
She is.
Yes, because she is as a villain even worse than
yeah, Austin
Yeah.
Butler.
because she is like so. She really is working in the shadows. Is she good? Is she bad? You don't know. What's her
Right.
agenda? And and then her unborn baby that's talking to her. That's another level right there.
Yeah, for
This is a step backwards. We didn't address it, and I told it to Roseanne earlier, and I just want to make sure our listening audience understands it. Is this movie over any movie? I'm talking Godfather. The sense of change in time and personality is incredible. Like when you go back to Dune 1 and how innocent and it's filled with dread, but it's innocent and it has this sort of starting point of all the characters, including Josh Brolin, where he starts, where he ends up, everybody transforms into something completely different to where they started out, and I think that's commendable. In both, obviously in the book.
Change.
Say again?
Yeah, go ahead. No, I'm just saying Rebecca Ferguson's change is bananas. Like
Right.
Definitely. Yeah,
Well, it's there with Francesca Annis and David Lynch, but it's really there in Rebecca Ferguson, and that's why I give her the top. Timothée Chalamet. I'm not saying anything that was bad or easy, but he does start as a idealistic sort of young waif or whatever, just a little kid, and then he becomes a man, and that's not the. But Rebecca Ferguson's transformation goes from like forlorn lover and all this and just sad and into this devious manipulator in a very believable and I guess organic way. It never feels like this is the plot machination and she has to become bad at this point. It just seems to gradually take over, as the story goes on.
Honestly, okay, and hers is amazing, and I think it's a lot of that is her choices as an actress, honestly. But I really like Josh Brolin's as well. I'm like, I really buy his becoming, basically a pirate.
Yeah. What choice did
during
he
that
have?
whole period? Yeah, for sure. And you feel that.
Yeah. And he looks it. Look, because he has the buzz cut. Going back, it only hit me how good it is. Like, wow, he has the buzz. I forgot he has the buzz cut. And
buzz cut.
Then you
I totally
see him
forgot.
again.
Yeah.
He's got the long hair. He just looks, but not in a fakey way. Not in a stupid. Oh, he's got this dumb wig on. He just seems like a different person. And and when he shows up, and what's interesting, and we covered this earlier. Well, nobody was listening, but what is interesting is now he's a pain in the ass. So before he was the right-hand man who taught him to fight, and now he's the old uncle, the old doddering uncle that everybody's embarrassed of, And that's an interesting development. Like, okay, so now he's another stranger that Timothée Chalamet's kind of doesn't know how to act around. And I thought that was a good dynamic.
Well, it's interesting that it's part of this life that he no longer has. And so it really does show... It shows growth on everybody's point, but also it's just interesting. It's interesting that, and I said this before to you, but just that I don't know if I can trust him. I feel nervous around this. I feel like there's someone visiting the house that maybe shouldn't be there. When he's talking really loudly in those corridors, I was like, it could be funny, except you feel the fact that, like, man, this is really awkward and could go badly.
And to be honest, the only character that I felt, because I was into this movie, the only one that I felt that generally that I could trust if I was, let's say, Paul Atreides, is Chani. She's the only one that I felt like he knew what her expectations were, what she wanted, and I don't think there was any like manipulation like his mother. Josh Brolin, any of those other characters, everyone, it's all about manipulation, and I don't know. It's very complex, but Chani was the only one that's like, she just wanted to be with him. And
I think,
right? I mean, I'm not missing anything. She didn't
No, I think you're right. And I think, in a lot of ways, we probably should have felt that a little bit more when he does decide to give her up.
Yeah. I just think they were paying lip
because
service.
I think you really are right. I think she is the only person and they do a good job of seeming like equals, not like a film that's trying to make them seem like equals. They genuinely seem like a team when they're,
I think he needed to take a chance on the other actress, and that she should have gotten the part, honestly.
But it's Zendaya.
I know he needed a star. I get it, but it's just, and it's not like she wasn't up to the task. It's not like she wasn't up to the task. She just has a gentleness that doesn't work. So had it been like the girl in the dragon tattoo, where you really feel sad that she invested so much in a heel, it's just not there, and it's not Zendaya's fault, honestly. It's actually Denis Villeneuve's fault. He just cast incorrectly. Because if she was this ferocious woman who let her guard down, it would have read more. It doesn't read. It doesn't read that she let her guard down.
And it doesn't read that, again, they do a lovely job. Their chemistry is fine. I think they do have a nice chemistry together.
But it is a bit like Tom Holland and her in Spider-Man.
It's a gentle little chemistry.
It feels like that. It doesn't feel like a ferocious warrior-to-warrior chemistry.
Well, let's face it. And if we're talking about ripoffs, right? Yeah, it's no Zoe Saldana that you feel like in every part of you, where she's just like this person who was vowed to. I mean, she's the best part of that stupid ass movie because she is so ferocious.
Well, as I've always said, she was completely ripped off for that movie and for an Oscar. She
100%
should have gotten an Oscar for that movie.
She was, but just saying that might be a problem because I do think you're right. Even Javier Bardem, who I love, is so invested in this idea of him being the Messiah that he
Yeah.
can't trust him entirely. And
Yeah.
so it is charming.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I got just another round of applause for Javier Bardem. I think as good as Anton Chigurh, this is one of his finest performances. Like
Absolutely.
I kept marveling the entire time, going, he is really doing a great job. Nothing is stupid about this performance. You know,
No,
I mean, and I'm
it's
looking
a
at you.
complex role.
I'm looking at you, Skyfall. You know, like he's been known to swing and miss.
Well, come on.
Okay, but you know,
Sure.
a testament to an actor's skill is how they can handle the bullshit, and he didn't handle the bullshit. But this movie, he's fantastic. Yeah, okay, but let's not forget, you know, there's Ben Kingsley. There's actors who can handle the bullshit.
Okay, you're right. But I have to say, I just thought Javier Bardem was effortless in this. Like to the
Totally great. But like
Absolutely.
he's really good in his 2 or 3 scenes in the first movie. He's amazing in this. Where I like, wow, he's selling this. You know, I believe every scene. I believe all the stuff about blasphemy, every bit of it. I believe this is coming from the heart from this guy. And that's what I mean about building the culture. It totally worked. I mean, it all worked because and a lot of that's on Javier Bardem's shoulders. This whole other religion and idea and concept of Paul being the Messiah works because of him.
Well, the fact that he isn't a fool and believes it, the fact that he truly imbues him with this sense of a believer is amazing and a really difficult task. And he does it. I mean, he brings like a profundity to it of just like, this is what it means to have faith. And yet he is, you know, also this warrior. I'm like, that's a really powerful combo.
Yeah. And, you know, Zendaya's doing good when they have that scene under the tent with her and gosh, what's her name again? One more time. Let me remember this name.
Sorry, yeah, I can't remember.
Sohelia Yakub. Okay, so when the two of them are sort of fighting with him about the BS that is their prophecy, that was a great scene. And everybody's good. Zendaya, they're all good in that scene. I think that was really set up the polemic really well. And it's a shame. That's the thing. That's why I'm like, why do I not care that she didn't get Paul Atreides at the end? That's my only, like, if I have a hang up about this film, it's there. I didn't care for her. I'm like, okay, she lost. Good deal. Florence Pugh. Can't wait to see Florence Pugh in the next movie. You know? So that was it. Any other favorites, Dave?
No, I mean, I think you covered, I mean, there were so many like small parts, but I mean, we touched on Rebecca Ferguson. I did like that warrior, not Zendaya, but the other one. I thought she was believable. I don't know what her name is, but
Jacob. Zuhilia Jacob.
Yeah. No, I think we touched on all of them.
Suhilia Jacob. Yeah.
I just want to say the Harkonnen were amazing, and Dave Bautista finally not being silly, and Stellan Skarsgård in a role that could have been utterly forgettable being awesome. So
well, that's the thing. The first movie, I thought my first impression is, well, he's no Kenneth McMillan.
And
in this, I'm like, Kenneth who? Sting who? Yeah. Those guys, and again, not that Sting was any great shakes to begin with. Sting got the short end of the stick on that movie, but in this case, you just don't even think. Now, I mean, Kenneth McMillan, as grotesque as he is actually now, like, in the back of my mind, second fiddle to Fade and his carnivorous concubines. Those were that was gross.
That was definitely
really gross. Yeah. And his black teeth.
That was the Caligula stuff where I was like, man, that is grossing me out.
No, and it was oily.
Yeah.
A lot of oil in that Harkonnen family.
That in addition to the full-on mouth kiss between Stellan Skarsgård and Austin Butler, and I was just like, okay, this is working.
But give it up for the scene where where Dave Bautista has to kiss his boot. Great scene. That would be my second favorite scene in the movie. After the floating Harkonnen on the mountain. I just thought that was a really strong scene and set up the family dynamic so well. It's good. It's really good. I mean, there are a lot of great scenes. I'd say most scenes are really great. You know, had I as the camera lingered on Zendaya as the credits right before credits rolled, I just felt like I don't care. And not that it's bad, but that was the final like, why don't I care that she lost her man?
I cared philosophically. I did not care emotionally.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It didn't have a atonement style wistfulness.
No, I should have felt it on more levels.
Yeah. And, we've already discussed why. Okay, moving on. Hans Zimmer. What do you think, Dave? Score.
I mean, I like the score. I mean, I know he's not your favorite, but I thought I thought it fit well for what I was watching. I didn't really, that it added when it needed to, but I wasn't distracted by it. If that makes sense. It's no Blade Runner.
And that could be an issue why I don't leave the theater skipping with these movies. I will say the mood and the ambiance that he creates is perfectly fine. There's no, it's not like, oh, I hate Hans Zimmer listening to this score. It's just that there's nothing tangibly there, and that's fine. It's not supposed to have a Star Wars type theme. It's just, again, it's music in service of the movie, and that's fine.
But I don't know if you need a Star Wars theme for these movies.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
You don't.
And so for me, it was fine because it's like it didn't distract.
No.
But yeah. Anyway.
There's. I mean, you're not supposed to notice the music, and I definitely did not notice the music, except for the little bit of the howling. But Roseanne, any thoughts before we move on to cinematography?
No, like I said, I just thought the scenes where they didn't use the music, I thought were well placed. I like the silence during the knife fight. I liked the sound of just Timothée Chalamet's breathing. So I guess I just think it was used effectively.
True that.
Whereas plenty of Hans Zimmer's ticking clock bullshit is not used effectively.
Oh. Yeah. No. Greg Fraser's cinematography. Dave, thoughts?
I loved it. It was I mean, that you brought up the scene when the Harkonnen are floating up to the cliff.
Yeah.
That was just cool.
Yeah.
And
well, that's a nod to the visual effects guys and gals.
Oh, that is. Oh.
Yeah, I mean that's cinematography. That's everything coming together to make a flawless, beautiful scene. I mean, that was just a great scene, But
that's cinematography.
Well, right? It's visual effects and cinematography. That's everything. Look, everything they accomplished with all of those scenes, all of the entire 2 movies is just amazingly well done. Like the top tier people doing top tier jobs. You look at the trailer to Godzilla vs. King Kong, and it just looks like a CGI shitfest. Like you couldn't pay me to see that movie. This is not that. Everything is in service to the shot and the story. So all the effects never jump out as that's a visual effect. That's just like music. You're not supposed to notice visual effects. You notice how cool it looks, but you don't go, oh, that looks like they're in front of a blue screen. And that's where the seamlessness of every scene in this movie just is. They are the top tier of all time. Of all time. I'm saying all time.
But just even when they're walking through those slot canyons, and it's just cool. And they have the Fremen running up above them. It was just a cool look.
Everything. It's the design. Everything. It's just
even that beautiful scene where Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet are trying to break up the rhythm of their walking, and so what they do end up doing is basically dancing in that desert scene. Is so unbelievable, like simply organically gorgeous. And so that's how I would describe the cinematography of just like, even though I know there's tons of visual effects and CG and all this stuff, I'm like, that's what's amazing. I'm just like, okay, so almost every scene in this movie does seem like I always say, Barry Lyndon, every scene looks like a painting. I feel the same way about this movie. It's just computer enhanced, but it's probably the first time I've seen it computer enhanced where it creates its own storytelling and art form as opposed to looking schlocky.
Yeah.
and Lord of
No.
the Rings-ish.
Yeah, for sure. And why people love again, and it's not like Lord of the Rings. Oh, it got bad over time. It looked bad. I didn't like
Back
Return of the
then,
King. You know,
I
my favorite
didn't like
scene.
how it looked. I
My
didn't like
favorite
how it looks then.
Yeah, my
Sorry.
favorite scene in Return of the King is the shot of the pyres on the mountains. And yeah, that was CG, but so what? It was actual helicopter photography on a snowy mountain. That was the only scene that sent chills up my spine. But the rest of it just looked like CG schlock, and it now more than ever. I don't understand the love for that trilogy. It's just the worst CG shitfest of one of them. You know, you name it. I mean, they're all just so bad now. But Lord of the Rings is the father of them all. It's all just
Sure.
CG crap. This
And again, back to battle scenes not being exhausting in
Yeah.
a film that's really about a war, you know, and yet not any of that. And again, you could say visual effects and direction, but I'm just saying also cinematography. I just think I
Right.
don't feel bombarded by this film. I
No.
feel like I want to participate in its beauty.
Yes, the cinematography never jumps out as they lit that scene. You know, there's nothing lit about it. It all just feels completely organic. It's just gorgeous work all around. I mean, everybody, the editors, everybody, even Hans Zimmer doesn't get in the way. So full credit to him on that. And he's gotten in the way of a lot of movies.
Sure.
You know, especially Gladiator.
I was just saying, looking at you, Gladiator.
Yeah. So yeah, just everybody all around. I can't praise this film enough, and just on a technical level. There it is. I mean, I have to say even better than Blade Runner. I mean, Blade Runner is
really?
well, technically yes. Blade Runner has some.
technically, yeah.
Blade Runner has some awkward mats. You know, like you look at, that's not seamless. You know, there's some matte stuff in the. You know, I mean, Blade Runner is still awesome, but in terms of just sheer technical prowess from start to finish, Dune is probably the finest set of films ever made. Honestly, you know, and I'm just talking, just on a level of director's vision. Like he just, you know, I bet you anything that scene with the palm trees in part one is a lot of it's CG. You know, like it just seems like you're naturally in a garden. And you're in a garden, and maybe most of it was, I don't know, but obviously the backgrounds in the were probably, you know, a CG painting, you know, a matte painting essentially, and it just looks completely authentic. And in this movie's that's even further, like all the stuff underground. Maybe a shot of the city or two looked like CG, but nothing that I go, oh, that looked fake. You know, the war looked great. When they launched the nukes, it looked great. You know? Like, the explosions looked great. Everything looks terrific. I mean, just effects artists at the top of their game. Can I stop gushing?
Who is the cinematographer again? It's
Greg Fraser. He did also the Batman. He's been racking up a bunch of. He's probably the best. He's hitting. So Roger Deakins, you know, who's like one of the stalwarts. He did Denis Villeneuve's like Prisoners. He did Blade Runner 2049. So he did Sicario. He did Sicario. You know, he's one of the top. And so but obviously Greg Fraser has now edged out Roger Deakins as the go-to guy for cinematography. So he's racking up all the big budget movies. And you know, these people deserve their money and they deserve their success because they're doing top of the line work. They're not J.J. Abrams. They're not making a bunch of crap masquerading as something good. They're making real movies with real precision and real artistry in every single frame. There's nothing lazy about it.
That's what was so amazing about this film. I was just like, there's so much skill involved in every level, and it's amazing how rarely I see that.
Yeah. No, I think they're the only ones in the last, I don't know, 3 decades where everything is flawless. Like you think...
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm just like...
On a technical level, there's never been a movie this perfect, or a set of 2 movies that are this perfect on a technical level.
The big reason why I'm just like, you know, I get bored with all these special effects extravaganzas because it's all in the service of special effects or, you know, yeah, exactly. Technical shit masquerading as something good when it's not. And this was not the case. This was a reason I could have stayed with it an hour longer.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
And
Yeah.
that's
And
you know,
again,
that's what Empire Strikes Back was. That's what Blade Runner was. That I mean, these are movies that were
Sure.
technically awesome, and they still are. But they, obviously there's some things that don't work.
Well, I think space.
Yeah.
Sure. But
Right.
I just think therein also lies the exhilaration for me of just like, I rarely see things that are this well done
Yeah. No,
And-
it's
and it-
on this level.
You know,
yeah.
and it's like one that I would want to pay to go back to the theater
Right.
to watch again.
Same.
Because it was
Same.
This morning I said, I feel like going to see the movie again.
Yeah.
Like I watched Dune 1 and like, no, now I want to see Dune 2 again.
Yeah.
So that's always a good sign when you're itching to see the movie in the theater again. And
Yeah.
that rarely happens to me anymore.
Yeah.
I just sit through so much stuff and it's like, ugh, I don't want to see that ever again. Again, Godzilla versus King Kong or whatever the hell that's called. I hope that fails. I hope we're just over this crap. Like, please, let's stop making these mindless piles of crap. I mean, Dune exists now, everybody, and you liked it. So stop going back to other movies going, oh, it was good, just good for a laugh.
Right. No, I keep thinking when you said like what counts for its popularity, I'm like, I hope to God this means that people are getting sick of all the shit they've been, given in the past however long, and that people actually want to watch decent movies.
I hope.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe the proliferation of streaming and all that makes it just people are tired of the same old stuff because you're getting it on every level. So maybe you do have to be just like in the 70s, when, a space movie was going to be a pile of crap. And then here, lo and behold, here's Star Wars that took it all very seriously. And on a technical level was, and still is. I mean, for its time, you still look at it and go, that was an awesome presentation. It still holds up. But
let me just say, I love Star Wars no matter what.
Time.
I mean, obviously.
I mean, what we got? The Matrix? What other movies in the last 30, 40 years have been technically flawless on nearly every level? And it's hard to find a movie, honestly.
Well, and for me, I hope after Killers of the Flower Moon, I read the book, love the book, still like the movie, still a B plus for me. Okay, but I just think if movies that are cause people to read the books, especially Dune, I think that's cool. And I think because now I read it in 84. I need to read it again because I can't remember anything, and I want to read it again. Now because
didn't you keep your book report?
Yeah, it's in my it's in my hope chest somewhere.
I think you got a B. I remember Blankenship gave you a B.
Hey, a B
God
is
rest
a
your
solid
soul.
grade. Yeah, but no, I just think it's like you said, I think people may be tired of mindless movies. I mean, I am, but I think it's even better. Oh, how many people are going to go read the book now?
Well,
Because
I still have to get
so
through Killers
well
of the
done.
Flower Moon and Rum Punch, but yeah, I'm up for it.
Just for the record, I do hope, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sound like a book dick or whatever, but I just think I do hope a lot of people read Killers of the Flower Moon. I do feel like Dune has like a pretty solid fan base, but I don't know, I mean, legitimately how many people rush to read Killers of the Flower Moon, but I hope a whole ton did.
I'm sure with the popularity.
Probably, right?
Yeah. I'm sure there's quite a bit because you've got to be curious about something in history. Like I'm more curious about Killers of the Flower Moon's history than I am about. I'm just still afraid of Dune because hell, I'm the guy who can't even finish the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I just don't get off on some authors, and it's like if Frank Herbert's one of these guys who just bores the crap out of me, I look.
It's not boring. I can say that. Like I couldn't get through Lord of the Rings. Sorry, everybody. Sorry,
but I did get through the Last of the Mohicans, so there you go.
Again,
that's a feat. That's a feat. That's a feat. That's a dry ass book.
Yeah, I read like 10 pages of that and gave up.
Same here. I gave it a shot. I'm like, Nathaniel Bumpo? What?
Forget it.
His name is Bumpo, not Hawkeye? Forget it.
No chance. There's nothing cool about this.
He doesn't look like Daniel Day-Lewis? What?
All right, well, we got to talk about direction. So I've been very down on him. Sicario, I didn't like. I didn't like his movies. I thought he was a guy who couldn't close a sale. He's catapulted to the top of the game. He's better than James Cameron for sure, and he utilizes the same tricks, but he's better at it, and he's better than Christopher Nolan by a long shot. So, Dave, your thoughts?
I agree, and I hope he gets, nominated for Best Director.
He got nominated last time, right? Didn't he?
I think he did, but he didn't win.
He didn't win, but he should win.
Yeah, I mean,
he should win.
He definitely better than Christopher Nolan. Not even in the same ballpark.
I don't think so. I mean, Christopher Nolan excels at trying to confuse you and do. He's a very self-indulgent filmmaker, I think, and this guy is not. This guy is he's just in service of telling the story correctly. And I was
going to say a generous filmmaker because he wants to he's expansive, I think, in this. Yeah.
Details. Lots of good details that needed to be told in order to understand the story and to feel the story. Again, a little bit of a misstep with Zendaya, but not terrible.
If this was his magnum opus or whatever, I'd still think that would be a life's work.
He got Dune right. And again, I haven't read it, but David Lynch gave us a taste of what it possibly is about. He got it right. We got, I never discussed the philosophical implications of David Lynch's Dune because it was such a mess. It is a mess.
Sure.
I mean, the plot points are there. The sci-fi version was all there, but boring and underwhelming. And he got it exactly right because you feel the different cultures. And you feel the spiritual, political, philosophical underpinnings of this work. Okay, this movie really is about leadership and motivating people through a belief, whether it's right or wrong, true or false. And for the most part, it's true. And that's what's even more interesting. There's not it's all a fraud. For the most part, it's true.
Yeah. Which makes the hope that much more painful. And again, a big budget film like this shouldn't make you feel like that, and it absolutely does. Not shouldn't, it should, but rarely do they. So I just think, man, what a feat.
No,
so
usually a filmmaker will throw
in the world to him.
I was just going to say, usually a filmmaker will chicken out and throw in the towel and just make it an action movie. You know. Adaptation, which we have to review at some point. One of the funniest movies ever. But that's because that's what they do. They always just throw in the towel and just rely on action.
Which would have been very easy to do, and people would have still
honestly,
gone to see
when I saw the previews, I thought, it's just going to be another big, shitty Avengers Endgame action movie. And it's not. And to its credit, it's not. He maintains the same plot, and he maintains the same style and everything. So, yep. All right, Dave, recommendation time. Who would you recommend this film to?
Everyone.
Mom, Dad.
And I would give this out of 10 a 9.9 for me. I love this movie.
Yes, I would give it an even 9. I loved it too. I'm gonna take Christopher Walken, Hans Zimmer, and Zendaya are my 3. They all count. They count for 0.33 or 0.033.
You can't take out Christopher Walken.
That's a formidable Christopher Walken. Where's Alex when you need him?
If nothing else, this podcast gave us that, Dave.
There you go.
All right, Roseanne, who are you recommending this film to?
Well, I recommended it to, if they're willing to sit through 3 hours of it, sure, I would recommend it to anyone. I recommended it to our mother, and then I remember she didn't like the first one.
Part 1 or David Lynch?
Yes, she didn't like part 1. Excuse me.
Too
anyway,
slow? So I never talked about it with her. Too slow? Didn't get
too
it?
Dark. Too confusing.
Okay.
Too confusing. Couldn't see it, but also too confusing.
Well, there is. We have to face facts. There is a commitment to the story that a lot of people I've been committed to it 3 times in my life. With David Lynch, with the sci-fi miniseries, and this, and so now I feel like I've read the book just because I understand the story so much, because it's I've seen the story a lot now. You do have to commit to it because there is a lot of, it's not techno jargon, but it's a lot of big talk.
It's an involved story.
It's big talk about houses and politics, and you have to know the players. You definitely have to know the players.
But if people can watch Game of Thrones, they can easily watch.
And I
Dune.
think that's why they're warming up to this. Honestly, they probably do have Game of Thrones to thank for this, because you are talking about different houses, and you are talking. Because I think there was a time when it was just too complex. David Lynch is a failure because the studio didn't believe in him. Yeah. And they cut. They cut the crap out of the middle. It's just.
And I know they did. And again, I think David Lynch's movie has some definite merit. I don't think it's just a sack of shit.
No, it's not. It's not. It's a failure, but it's probably a failure in editing and a failure in conveying all the details of the story, because it just ends.
I'm sure he wanted to do more.
Right. Yeah.
Tried to do more. Anyway. But I would recommend this to anyone with eyes, a brain, and a heart.
Right. I think, obviously Alex isn't here because it's hardcore sci-fi and that's not his thing. So it is sci-fi. So if you don't like sci-fi, you probably won't like this movie because this is hardcore sci-fi. So
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you can pull spirituality, philosophy, everything out of this movie.
That people who would like spiritual and philosophical movies usually don't gravitate towards sci-fi, though. You know that? Which
is funny because sci-fi at its best is nothing but spirituality and philosophy.
Of course,
obviously.
But it's still a hard sell for a lot of people and a lot of countries.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, thank you to both of you. There it is, just an absolute love fest, which you rarely get out of me. You gotta admit, I don't usually love a film. I still nitpicked on this one when I promised I wouldn't, but a few nitpicks. But still, I'm gonna see it again, probably in the theaters. I want to go out and see it again, and then I'm gonna buy it, and then I'm gonna buy the special edition Blu-ray where they combine both movies into one big movie with all the cut scenes. All right. Thanks for listening, folks.
See you guys. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Thank you for listening to Fabulous Film and Friends. Copyright 2024, a Bel Air Films production.